Well, next up we have Ace Attorney. Capcom said that there's going to be, well, on the list that I saw, they showed up, it says Ace Attorney, and I'm very excited. I've always sort of liked that Ace Attorney game. It's always been that sort of weird one-off Capcom game. Well, Capcom has a ton of weird one-off games where it's like, oh, this is great. This is great. It sort of sits in the corner the same way Harvest Moon does, where it's like nothing does what this does.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot more things that do what Harvest Moon does now, but there's still nothing that does what Phoenix Wright does in particular. And it's like, they've had a lot of games, and they're all really fun. And I think at this point in time, in particular, with the Switch doing as well as it is, even though this year has been terrible for it, this would be the perfect time to, because it's basically a Nintendo series. The original Ace Attorney game was on the GBA, then it went over to the DS, then the 3DS. So I'm thinking that they're probably going to announce Ace Attorney for the Switch, and I really want to see what they do with it, because the 3DS games are great, and the way that they've made they put new characters in it, they've expanded upon the lore. God, I'm sorry, Charlie.
No, it's calm.
I
Go ahead.
Up with the lore.
Lay it down. Absorb it. Go for it.
The way they switched from 2D to 3D, the way that Phoenix Wright went from like, oh, he tries his best, but he's really good, but he's also like real clumsy, to no, he's the leader of this investigative corporation, and there are more people here that you could play as. I just like all of that. It's what I like about the way that they portraying DMC, where it's like it's not just Dante you play as now. You can play as Nero and this other guy and maybe these other two people. It's like you're sort of future-proofing a series, and you're introducing more characters that people could get behind and be like, oh, okay, I would like to see a game with this guy and this guy and this guy next. So for me, Ace Attorney is sort of, it has so much character and charm to it that I just want to see what they have in store for it. It's a fantastic series, and I just want more people to play it. I just really want more people to play that game.
Yeah, that's fair. It's super. They're super fun and they're super interesting, and it's one of those series where I never get hyped for a new one, and I very rarely play a new one. But occasionally, like I will just be in a really specific mood where I'm like, I need Ace Attorney in my life right now. That's what I need right now. I need a bit of Ace Attorney. I need a bit of that. I want to point at someone and shout objection, and then you play it and you just remember just how good they were and just how fun those games are. And they do something different. Like
and
there's
the
nothing quite like it. There's nothing quite. The soundtracks are excellent. You're 1000% certain about that. The only game I can even think of that's partly like it is there's a game on PC called Avery Attorney, which is basically it, but everyone is birds, and it's in like 16th or 18th century France in Paris. And it's amazingly good, but
great.
There's only one of those. Do you know what I mean? Ace Attorney is this thing that comes around every so often, and so I'm always excited when they come out. I rarely get them day one, but I mean, if let's say it comes to Switch and I finally get a Switch, I will get it. It will be bought.
Yeah, I don't really finish them, but I just love playing them, honestly.
Yeah,
because they're very long. There's a lot of text in them. Anyway, next up we have Sega. Now I'm gonna leave Project Judge to last because I think you probably have a lot to talk about there. Team Sonic Racing. What are your thoughts on Team Sonic Racing? I know you sort of changed your mind
no changing of my mind, mate. It's probably going to be bad, but I'm excited for it. I don't know. It's like the trailers haven't been very good, and what they've shown off hasn't been amazing, but they have a track record of producing, like the last two have both been excellent. I think this is Sumo Digital as well. I'm not 1000% certain, but I'm confident that it will be good, at least. And as someone who is super obsessed with kart races, I want it sort of ideally like now, please. That'd be great. Well, I'll finish Spider-Man first, then I want it in my life. But yeah, I'm confident it will be at least very good, Charlie, for me at least. Go on.
With kart races.
Go on. Break my heart.
I think you might have a problem when it comes to kart races.
Incorrect, my friend.
Even if they're bad, you're gonna You'll put yourself through it.
I'll put myself through it, but listen, I'm saying this now. I'm saying this now, and I'm putting it on the internet forever. F1 Race Stars, the F1 kart racing game, was good. Don't at me.
You know what you are? You are the To you, kart races are like Dynasty Warriors.
Oh yeah. That's completely true.
Yeah, that's the analogy I use there.
To be fair, there are some bad ones that I just do not enjoy, but kart races are great. Like, I mean, Nicktoons Racing on the PlayStation 1, for example, is objectively not good, but I enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? You pick Tommy Pickles and you just go. You just go.
Oh yeah, have you heard that they're gonna do a Rugrats continuation?
I have, yeah. It's weird, but I'm fine with it because I love Rugrats.
I'm hype.
Rugrats in Paris, best film ever made.
Even if it ends up terrible, I just still want to see what they do.
Yeah, same.
Next up, we have Catherine Full Body, which is the not sequel, but like re-release, but with extras, like the deluxe edition of Catherine, which is a puzzle game made by Atlas, which is in the same. It's sort of in the same universe as Persona, but not really. But it sort of is. And it was the engine it uses was the precursor to the. Well, it is the exact same engine as the Persona 5 engine, but it basically led to dev of Persona 5. I know that's me just sort of going into the backstory of it a lot, but a lot of people probably wouldn't know that. But I had Catherine on my account for a very long time on my PS3. I forgot for free. I just never played it. I always tried to like get around to playing it. I just never gave it a try. Apparently it's hard as balls.
It is.
So maybe I'll try this one.
I think it's really worth trying. I think even if it looks like something you might not be into, it's one of those things I would always recommend people try because it is very, very interesting and does things that are very, very interesting. And I think there's something that most people would enjoy in there somewhere. It might not be your cup of tea, really. You might play it and just be like, do you know what? This isn't for me. But I think for anyone, it's worth playing because it is just so. I don't want to use that word again, but it's just so interesting. I think it's at least worth playing. And if this comes out and it catches you, I think just go ahead and try it because I love it. It's sort of mad, but I love it.
I just really like the way that in the marketing they sort of just take the piss. Like, 2001: A Space Odyssey? The TGS trailer for Catherine came out, and it was like, it showed, when they show a planet and the light side of it comes up?
Yeah. Like,
they showed that, and they put like a cork on top of it to show a boob, and it's just like, I like the fact that you guys could still do this.
Yeah. It has its
like
own, it has a very specific sense of humor as well.
Yeah, I enjoy that. All right, next up we have Project Judge. Now, I got you to watch the 2 trailers released for this game before we started recording.
Yeah.
And this is made by the creators of Yakuza, who are Sega. If you guys didn't realize, this is the Sega section.
And you can tell.
I don't know. I don't remember if I said if it was the Sega section or not, honestly. But Project Judge is set in the same location as Yakuza, which is Kamurocho, which is based on a location actually in Japan. Don't know what location, but it's in Tokyo. I think it's in the Kanto region. But I'm sort of getting too far into the minutiae.
Alright, why don't you give me the longitude and latitude as well while you're at it, bro?
The longitude?
I want the exact globe location. I want to be able to see it. I want to go on Google Maps right now and zoom in.
I will tell you their best restaurants, as well as their 5-star ratings. But in this, you play a detective, like a really good detective, that for whatever reason is also extremely good at martial arts.
Almost
gravity
gravity-defyingly good at martial arts.
Like, it's weird because they have 2 distinct trailers, and the first one is very serious, and it's like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And it's like, they slowly build up to the story, and it's like, okay, you got my interest. Then the second trailer is like, if you played Yakuza, you know what to expect.
Yeah.
Like, everything goes balls to the wall. The fights are very unrealistic. everything is just like gone to 100. There are mini games, there are side quests, there are all these things, and it's like I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. But before I get into my feelings, what's your thoughts?
I think there's an interesting juxtaposition between the tone of the story trailer and the tone of the gameplay trailer. The story trailer presents it as something that's very serious and very overly dramatic, let's say. Whereas the gameplay went so far into bombast that I literally laughed out loud at one point. Just at the absurdity of what I saw. Which is that's not uncommon for Japanese games in any stretch of the imagination, to have sort of these weird dissonance between like tones at times, which is fine. But the story trailer made me really, really interested, because I was like, I don't know, it just felt different. It felt new. Like, I was really interested in what it was saying, what it could throw up. And then I started to see the gameplay, and some of it was really interesting. It's weird. Like, if we're breaking down the gameplay into combat and non-combat, I guess the combat just seems like what I've seen from Yakuza. That's not uninteresting to me, but it's certainly different in tone. Like, the story trailer was like, this guy has just been murdered, this girl's just been murdered, these people are dying, there's this really deep thing. And then you look at the gameplay trailer, my man's doing like a head scissors like Rey Mysterio in his prime. It's kind of like mad. And then some of the detective stuff that was happening looked like an okay side quest from a GTA game. Like, I don't know. We'll see. I'm interested. Like, having seen those two trailers, I'm interested to see what happens and where it goes, and to see ultimately where that lands. And it may be my first. Like, you said some stuff about it being similar to Yakuza games. As someone who has never played any of those games, there's at least a scratch to be itched there. So it may be my first. It may end up being my first foray into that
universe.
Sure. Yeah, let's go with that. But I'm interested. It's a bit odd, but I'm interested.
Well, on my opinions, I've played a lot of Yakuza. Like,
especially recently.
Ever since getting into this, ever since last year, like, I played Yakuza 0, I played Yakuza Kiwami, which is Yakuza 1, played Yakuza 6, played Yakuza 4, played Yakuza Kiwami 2, which is Yakuza 2. And I'm only really missing 2 games in the series. This is a lot of Yakuza. And the thing about Yakuza is that it's all set in the same city. So you always know where all the streets are. You always know where to go. You always... Like, Kamurocho is brilliant. And it's brilliant that they keep just sort of remaking it and changing where some things are, adding things, taking things away. But you get burnout after a while. And, like, I was sort of hoping that this one would be... I'm fine that it's saying Kamurocho, but I was really hoping that if you're going to do more of a serious storyline... I know Yakuza has very serious storylines most of the time, but this is different in that it's a detective, and it's not about Yakuza and criminals. It's about criminals, but it's more you're on the other side of the law. And I was hoping that the mini games in particular, or stuff like that, were more about, like, if you remember in LA Noire, where you would do autopsies of bodies and stuff and talk to people, especially when you consider the Dragon engine, which is the engine that Yakuza uses and the same engine that uses Project Judge. It's phenomenal. It's unbelievably well made. It's probably the best engine, one of the best engines out there right now. It just makes me think that it's a bit of a missed opportunity that you'd make a lot of the gameplay just Yakuza again, you know? Like, if you're gonna put this in the same location and go, okay, we're gonna expand upon the Yakuza universe and try and make a spin-off series, you could try and do, you could try to make this quite a bit different, but it's a shame that they didn't. I will probably still get it, but I'm not gonna get it as soon as it comes out,
sure,
because I played a lot of Yakuza and I have a lot of burnout.
Yeah.
And there's a few more that I have to get through.
Yeah,
Fist and North Star Yakuza, Jesus Christ.
There's that, of course, yeah. I think there is interesting parallels to be made between that and LA Noire. There was some of the stuff where I was watching in trailers and I was like, "Oh, this is a bit LA Noir-y." And as someone who really enjoys detective stuff, that's kind of exciting for me. But ultimately, we'll see where all that lands. We'll see where all that lands.
I'm gonna have a whole bunch of fun with it, but I just think that you guys could have done some different stuff with it. Still have some hype for it. All right, next up we have Square Enix. Now, Square Enix showed off a really weird trailer at E3. It was like a live action mixed with gameplay. It was for a game called The Quiet Man, and it reminded me a lot of the early Xbox One game called Quantum Break.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I still don't know exactly what this game's about, to be honest with you. I want to say they had like a 40-minute gameplay presentation for it some weeks ago, but it just doesn't look that interesting to me. Honestly, it's just one of those games to me that just seem like I don't agree with mixing live action footage in video games in 2018. Like, if it was in the 90s where graphics were really bad and you had to mix it in to wow people, similar to when they made, full motion videos to hide the idea of all the polygons that were actually rendered look terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I'm cool with that. But in 2018, it's like characters look very close to how we do in real life. You don't need to make live action. Just get them in mocap suits. Why go through all this extra effort? But what's your thoughts?
In regards to the live action, have you ever played the game Roundabout? The indie game?
No.
You should play Roundabout. It does the live action thing brilliantly. That and then the upcoming Chuck Tingle game are the two things that I'm very excited for, which have essentially FMV in it.
Do they? What's the graphical style of them? Are they like 2D or?
Chuck Tingle, I have no idea yet. I just know it's coming, and I'm very excited for it because Chuck Tingle. If you don't know who Chuck Tingle is, Google Chuck Tingle, because Chuck Tingle is the greatest author of our generation, and you can't convince me otherwise. But the upcoming Chuck Tingle game has FMV in it, so that's very exciting. And given what those books are, that's just going to be an absurd situation that I'm very, very excited for. Roundabout has basically, in Roundabout, you are a limousine driver and you do missions where you're driving people from A to B in dumb ways, and you do certain things between the two of them. But there's cutscenes which set up the mission, which are live action, and you see you like look behind a limo and you see who the person you're driving is, and that bit is like, it's comedic, it's dumb, it's stupid, but it's really, really good. And the gameplay is actually really dumb. The idea for Roundabout is just, it's so dumb. I won't explain it. Google it. Trust me, it's worth looking into.
Right.
I don't mind it. I think if you use it, depends how you use it, really. I think Quantum Break was one of those ones where it was made to fit in with the idea of Xbox sort of bridging that gap between TV and games, and the TV integration. Yeah, exactly. And I think that was just a natural progression from that. Not something that greatly interested me. The gameplay of it was fun enough, but their upcoming game looks so much more interesting to me, and I'm way more excited for that than I ever was for Quantum Break. I have no idea what The Quiet Man is at all. I didn't even know there was a gameplay presentation out for it. I'm sort of being deliberately avoiding anything because that original trailer made me very, very interested. It was really short and I had no real idea what was going on with it, but I was like, okay, I'm caught by this. And so I'm sort of deliberately avoiding everything from it, specifically so when reviews come out and hit, then I can just see whether it's good or not, and then I will dive into it then. I might go and look at that gameplay stuff, I don't know, but I'm at least excited for it. I just, as you say, I've literally, I could not know less what it actually is.
So you're actually looking forward to The Quiet Man?
That original trailer just caught me. Something about it caught me, and it made me interesting enough to where I was like, okay, cool. Where are we going from this? Where are we going from here? But I like, as you know, I like media blackout stuff. Like, if I'm interested in something, I like just avoiding it because I like going into it super fresh. Like, there's some of the stuff that, like, I'm playing Spider-Man at the moment, and there's some stuff from that which I have found out since was in trailers, but I did not know because I avoided the trailer, and I was like, oh, that's a thing that is in this game, is it? And then like got excited for it. Like, I like going blackout. I'm interested in stuff. So, but we'll see. I don't. That game could go either here or there.
I think the reason why I'm not as interested in it, at least when they first showed it off, was Nomura is the main designer for a lot of stuff in Square Enix. Well, when it comes to story, character design, and so on, he loves belts.
Big into belts. He's like Randy belts. Savage.
Exactly. But he was also behind the storyline for Kingdom Hearts, and that is something. And I think he's the one behind this as well. I don't really trust him to make good stories.
Very, very quickly, in one sentence, what's your opinion on Kingdom Hearts?
I think that the first game is extremely charming and I love what they were trying to do. I think the second game, same thing. After that, they milked it to death on many platforms and Nomura just kept on digging the same hole and made all these clones of characters, made all these different types of Heartless, and just made a terrible, terrible story that only people who've played, I don't even know how many Kingdom Hearts games there are now, with terrible naming conventions. I think that at first it was a game that defied what most RPGs were at the time, but nowadays it's turned into a joke.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, yeah, it never fails to baffle me about the lore of that game. It's just confusing to me. But I guess when you're crossing Mickey Mouse and Final Fantasy, there's bound to be some.
That's not
madness.
even the problem.
No, I just mean there is bound to be some. Like you have to do certain things to make that work, and certain logical leaps have to be made.
Kingdom Hearts 1 did it fine. It was simple, relatively simple. Kingdom Hearts 2, a little more confusing, but relatively simple. Is when Nomura gets into his bag and just goes, you see all these guys with hoods and belts? They're this organization and they're called 13 and they have X's in their name in weird places and their name shifts because they're nobodies and nobodies are... Shut up, dude. Shut the hell up. You are not Kojima. Kojima, he sounds like a maniac, but the guy has reason to his madness. You do not. You're just a lunatic on the road asking for spare change. Nomura, just stick to designs. Don't go too crazy. Just no.
So
I like you, dude, but no.
So what you're saying is you're a big fan.
I think that's the reason.
Big fan
of some of his designs, but not his stories.
That's fair. That's fair.
And yeah. So yeah, I'm very apprehensive of that side of Square Enix, because this feels like it's Final Fantasy developed. Like a lot of the team from Final Fantasy seems to be working on this.
Fair.
At least aesthetic-wise, from what I've seen. Next up, speaking of Final Fantasy, Crystal Chronicles Remastered. If you guys could remember, back in, I want to say 2003 or 4, there was a weird, chibi version of Final Fantasy released for GameCube, which was all about co-op. I remember having that game, but you couldn't really ever play it properly because you would need 4 GBAs or more than 1 GBA hooked up to your GameCube. So, like, just by that nature, it sort of is a failure, I want to say, because you can't really play it easily single player. But I guess it's a way of people experiencing that game again with online and stuff. I didn't really like the game, but it's back. This is a gen of a lot of remasters. What's your opinions of Crystal Chronicles?
I have no real opinion on it. Like, Final Fantasy is just one of those series that just passes me by every single time. Like, I want to be into it. 7's my favorite because it's the only one I've played a significant portion of. The rest of them are just things that exist in the ether and float along. 15 almost made me buy it, but couldn't quite get there. It just exists as a series as a whole. It just exists for me. Nothing to write home about for me. people love it, man. People love it, and that's cool. And if you're serving that market, you're serving that market. I'm not complaining that it doesn't cater to me. It just doesn't cater to me. So
Yeah, okay. Next up, we have The Last Remnant Remastered. Last Remnant was at the very beginning of the 360 and then PS3 gen, where Microsoft was making a push to get a lot of JRPGs on the system. They did well at first. They got a lot of exclusives. Well, a few. And this is Square Enix again trying to go, well, it didn't do that well on 360, so let's re-release it. The thing is, I don't think this is going to do well because the original game wasn't really liked too much. Did you play it?
No.
I never played it.
No, I just remembered the same reaction of what you're saying. I never actually got around to playing it personally, but I remember that happening.
All right. Next up, Soul Calibur 6. Soul Calibur 6. Soul Calibur's actually been doing extremely well this whole year with marketing. Like, they've had character trailers almost every other week. And I don't even know what they're going to show off at TGS. Like, they've just been showing off things all the time. I'm surprised it's not out yet. I know you don't play many fighting games, but you like Tekken, and Soul Cal is sort of in the same boat as Tekken.
Yeah,
it's made by the same guy.
My main is Keelik. I'm a big Keelik boy. I enjoy Soul Calibur.
Soul Calibur's nice.
Shut up. Soul Calibur is. I really enjoy Soul Calibur a lot. Never enough to buy it, but it's one of my higher level fighting games. And I don't know, I'm sort of in the market at the moment for a fighting game, I feel. I keep getting drawn between Tekken 6
Dragon Ball Fighters
and Soul Calibur.
Dragon Ball Fighters?
Maybe. I don't know. No Dragon Ball game has been as good as Budokai for me, so I don't know whether I'd actually want to try it, but there is something about it that appeals to me. I probably won't get Soul Calibur 6, but I'm interested in it, and I may end up getting it on a whim. Just as long as it has Keelik in it. If it doesn't have Keelik in it and his big old stick, then I'm not interested. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's in it. He has another form as well.
Does it have a big stick?
I won't spoil anything else. It has a stick.
Oh, no, I'm sold. Let's go, boys.
All right, next up, they have Jump for... Well, this is the Namco Bandai section. Again, I forgot to announce it. But the other game is Jump Force, which is, if you guys know manga and anime, like one of the biggest publishers out there is Shonen Jump. And they make things like Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, and so on. And this is, like, once in a while they make a game where it's a bunch of all their properties fighting. And I think the best example of this was a game called Jump Ultimate Stars and Jump Superstars on Nintendo DS. I personally had this game. It was a 2D fighter. Well, it was like a 2D Smash game, and that game was fucking awesome. It was really fun. But this doesn't look good. Like, the graphics look terrible. It just looks bad. It looks very, very low effort to me. And for someone, like, I know so many of these characters, and I don't know. Maybe I've just grown out of Jump. Anyway, what's your thoughts?
I laughed out loud when I heard the name was called Jump Force because I wasn't aware of what Jump Force was, and I was like, that is by far the worst name for anything I've ever heard in my life. Before someone told me, no, that's the name of, like, the collection they're part of or whatever it is. Like, I don't understand it fully still, but, like, I laughed out loud at that. It looks like a...
What's my jump?
I was like, what does that even mean? Anyway, it looks like a sort of, you know, like, we've spoke about this before, where you had that, like, mid-tier games on, like, the PS2, for example. And some on the PS3, but they died down, sort of that era, where they were just there was some super interesting stuff, which were janky and not quite great, but, like, were, like, really fun to play. It reminds me of that tier of game, where there's like a jank quality to it, and the graphics aren't quite great, but potentially
it's really not good.
Potentially
the graphics are not good.
Yeah, right. But potentially everything else could supersede that and make it something fun. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. Potentially, it doesn't have Yuri on Ice characters in it, so I don't care. It's my big stance. That's my big stance. If I can't ice skate in your anime game, then I'm not interested.
You can ice skate. You're a nicer in the game.
Oh, then I'm buying it, boy. Yeah, boy. I just want to do that.
Am I lying? You
Oh,
wouldn't know
you're
until
a
you check
thousand
afterwards.
percent lying. Because there's no way a mainstream game is having Yuri on Ice in it, but I would buy it if it existed.
Next up is my secret pet game. A game that I love a lot. Tales of Vesperia Remaster. A game that is on my favorite video game list of all time. It's my
Really?
favorite Tales of game. Yes, one of my favorite RPGs of all time. And it's just like, it represents to me. I sort of have, like, growing up, RPGs have always sort of been, I wouldn't say comfort food to me, but they're like the genre I could always go back to, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna enjoy this for what it is. I'm gonna put a lot of hours into it. I'm gonna feel good at the end of it. You know, it started with Breath of Fire 2 when I was a very young kid, and I've played so many since. But with the PS3 gen and the 360 gen, there wasn't many of them. And Tales of Vesperia is sort of, it was the cutoff point, because it was 2008 when that game came out. I had just recently got into the Tales of series because I played Fantasia on the old GBA emulator, and when Vesperia, I found Vesperia for 360 because again this was the time when 360 was trying to buy up all these Japanese games exclusive rights, and I booted it up and it was like, this game it's just phenomenal. Like, the character isn't annoying. He's not this whiny 20-year-old, 21-year-old kid who doesn't know shit. He's like a dude that will go, hey, you're hurting people, so I'm gonna kill you in the dead of night and not tell anyone and get away with it because I understand that you have to make hard choices. And they don't hop on and on about things like that. They got Troy Baker to voice the main character of this, and they did cell shading so freaking well to the point where Nino Kuni looks fantastic, and wasn't that far behind. Like, all the Tales of games after this have never really recaptured that same amount of, you know, aesthetic perfection. Like, even now I look at these games with so much more power and it's like, no, they don't have it. You know, the combat was phenomenal. You had things that you could link into, you have all these different moves you could learn, you had so many costumes you could get, and they weren't DLC, and it was just fast. It was like, this is what anyone who enjoys RPGs should play. Like, this is what an RPG is. And I'm just really happy to see that this game is finally available for people again, because it hasn't been available for in excess of 10 years. It got discontinued on the 360, it got re-released on PS3, but it never came over. They tried to translate it, that never finished, and we're finally getting it now. And for me, it's like, you know, similar to how Streets of Rage 4 has my heart go a flutter, this does the similar thing.
That's fair. It's one of those.
That's just me gushing.
It's one, bruv, gush away. It's one of those series where I've always wanted to get into it, but just never have for some reason. So potentially this might be a gateway. I don't know yet. But it's one of those things where I've always looked at it from afar and really admired it, especially just the looks of it. I always really like the graphics, but just I've never got around to it. I've just never got around to it, but I always want to. It's one of those things that I think may also be forever on my to play list.
Give it a try. Honestly, yeah. Just give. If I was to say, give any game in that series a try, just give Vesperia a try. It's fantastic. I love that game to death. Like, for me, there's a top 10 games list. The order always changes. You have things like God of War, Red Dead Redemption there. Vesperia has not left that top 10 ever. And that sort of goes to show how much I enjoy that game, even 10 years later. Next up, we have Koei Tecmo. We have Dead or Alive 6, which is a fighting game. It's a 3D fighting game. So you might be interested, Charlie?
Dead or Alive, I could take it or leave it. If I'm going to play a 3D fighting game, I'd play Tekken, then I would play Soul Calibur. I think Dead or Alive at that point. It's done some interesting stuff, and I've enjoyed a couple of them in the past. But
I like the counters.
There's just a couple of things it does. And there was one on the 360s particularly, which I enjoyed a lot. But
4.
Was it 4? I can't remember which one it was.
It was a launch game, right?
It was very very early. It was very
Yeah, that was 4.
But I can take it or leave it, especially if we're talking about a conference or a set of a time period where we're also getting a Soul Calibur 6. It's like, take it out.
All right, next up we have Warriors Orochi 4. Now, I have for me, Koei Tecmo represents the laziest developer on the planet. They know what they're doing. They've been doing it since the PS2 era. I can't really hate on them too much, but at the same point in time, it's like, guys, come on. Do something new.
I know what you mean.
I love Dynasty Warriors, but I just can't, I can't play these anymore. Like, it used to be comfort food. I just can't anymore.
Yeah, it serves a specific audience. And they continue to serve it, and that's great. I appreciate its tone and the sort of grandiose stupidity of it all. I quite enjoy. But it would never be a series where I would buy every installment, or those types of games anyway. It would never be a thing where I would buy them day one every single time. The only one that I came close to buying day one was Hyrule Warriors.
Really?
Yeah. Like, as someone who owned a Wii U, and it just looked interesting, but it didn't happen. It's fun enough. Like, it's one of those games. It's just there's a couple of game series and types of games where, like, if I'm in like a CEX and I see it for like a $5, I'll be like,
yeah,
let's go. I'll pick that up. I'll have some fun with it for £5, but never ever buy it. I'd never buy it day one.
Yeah, and then you just turn your brain off for the next few days.
Yeah.
Pressing square, square, triangle, square, 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 triangle, square, square, triangle.
Yeah.
Square, 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 triangle.
Yeah, it's not a complex.
Circle.
It's not a complex fighter in that sense. And if we compare it to something we've both played recently and I'm playing right now, Spider-Man has very simplistic combat ultimately, but the way what it does with that is very interesting and does interesting things with it. Whereas I feel like the Warriors franchise, as it were, are very, very.
It's been using the same stuff since PS2.
Right. It's like.
That's the best way to explain
it's
it.
It's a bit too. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a bit too. Yeah. It's just repetitive, but it serves that audience, and there is a very vocal group of people who love those games, and I'm super happy that they get another one of those weird ass games, because man, they are weird. But yeah.
I actually really enjoy the lore. Well, it's not even lore.
That's my favorite thing you've ever said in my life. That was so perfect.
You're probably gonna voice capture that and just be like,
"Oh, it's gonna be my ringtone.
Play it to me tomorrow." And annoy me.
You're gonna be in the office and you're just gonna hear, "I really enjoyed the lore," and you're gonna be like, "No, why?"
You're not getting my audio samples,
bro. Just
you're not gonna get.
Listen, when you go to lunch, all I'm saying is you're gonna come back to your Mac and it's gonna have different sounds. Is all I'm gonna say about that. You're going to be sitting there, and my current boss and your former boss's phone's going to go off, and you're going to hear, "I'm really into the lore," and you're going to hear, "Charlie, what have you done?"
I will have to quit my job. Just abandon ship. But I've always enjoyed the actual Romance of the Three Kingdoms and learning about all the characters, because back in the day, it was like, as a kid, I don't know who all any of these guys are, but this guy has an eye patch and a big sword. I'm gonna use him. And I learned more about him. I learned more about the three factions. I learned that even though they keep showing this guy's benevolent, he's a dickhead. Why do they keep showing he's benevolent? He's a real asshole. And you just learn more about the military tactics, and it's like, there's a lot of interesting things on that side of it, but it feels like the gameplay never caught up to that. It never actually improved itself to keep up with expanding upon presenting the Romance of the Three Kingdoms in a very robust way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, they missed out on so much by doing it that way. It could have been so much bigger, but they just are lazy and want to stick with what they already have. Extremely lazy.
Yeah. I won't use that word, but I'd back the sentiment of what you're saying.
I can't think of them as being anything else than lazy. Like PS2, Charlie.
Yeah.
Like 2 generations ago.
I don't know. I
Like the longest gen.
I try not
last
to
gen.
use lazy as a term, just because like I feel like it takes so bloody long to make a game that it's almost impossible to be lazy, if you know what I mean. Like lazy's what I do.
Spin-offs.
Lazy's what I do when I'm in the evening and I know I need to get food, to get dinner, but I can't be asked. So I just have like a variety of things that are in the house, which make no sense as a meal. I'm having like a packet of crisps and some baked beans. Like, you're like, what are you doing with your life? And I'm like, well, it's dinner. I can't be asked to leave the house. That's real lazy. But like, yeah.
All right, guys. That's it for our TGS 2018 coverage. Yeah. I always don't know what to do at the end of these. I really don't.
Say goodbye, innit?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and say like if you want, and you could also subscribe if you want, and you could also share if you want. You could also leave a comment if you want. But yeah, see you, I guess. Bye.
Bye.